I would rather buy XDC instead of Bitcoin. And even though that's not financial advice, some people may be thinking, oh, how can you say that? Bitcoin is so rare. It's so amazing. And I'll agree with that. But I'm in the world of cryptocurrencies to look for hypothetical upside. And so far, I haven't been wrong when it comes to XDC. But I think better days are ahead because $3, that's still my price target for XDC during this bull run. And if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $45 billion, so it's not that bad. We've seen Dogecoin reach over 80 billion, BNB reached over 100 billion, so it's not crazy. And keep in mind, $3, despite how much XDC has bumped, is still around a 30x from here. So it's still not that bad. Now, people are going to say, okay, it's not the best upside out there, but if you actually take a look at Bitcoin, it can't do a 30x from right now during this bull run. I'm not saying that it can't do that like decades later or whatever, but then let's say in the next 6 months to maybe a year, yeah, Bitcoin can't do a 30x. Because let's say if it were to do a 30x, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be approximately $60 trillion. So that's kind of insane. The GDP of Canada back in 2023 was around $2 trillion. So during this bull run, like in the next 6 months to maybe a year, it can't 30x that. You know what I mean? Not to mention, you take a look at, for instance, the price at that point would be around $3 million. So yeah, that's a little bit ridiculous. Like, could Bitcoin maybe go to 250,000? And even Charles Hoskinson, who is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Cardano, he said that he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000 all the way up to $500,000 in the next 1 or 2 years, based on a video that he was a part of back in November. Like, that range, considering, let's say, all the bullish factors are correct, maybe. Like, I think $500,000 is way too optimistic. But again, still even despite that, Bitcoin can't even do a 10x from here, in my opinion, during this bull run, like in the next 6 months to a year. That's just totally out of the question, in my opinion. However, for the next cycle, that's a totally different story. But even besides that, I have to take a look at this logically. What would have an easier time doing a 30x during this bull run? Is it going to be XDC or Bitcoin? I think hands down, it's XDC hypothetically, which is why it's just the winner here for me. Now, people like to say that, oh, Bitcoin has to always be one of the foundational pieces or something like that, but I completely disagree. I think a lot of the times people take a look at these enterprises, these companies that do acquire Bitcoin, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to do that too. But I think in some cases, these companies and enterprises, they just want to look cool, because logically speaking, if I was like the leader of an enterprise or whatever, let's say I'm like the CEO, I just wouldn't understand why I would acquire a lot of Bitcoin, because it just doesn't make sense, because there's other things out there that have better hypothetical upside. So why not acquire that? If I'm running a business, I'm looking for potential profits. I'm looking for potential upside. I'm not looking for something that's cool. But I think sometimes people, they want to look cool. And I think sometimes people, they follow this. But I just don't get it. Like, people like to say, oh, Michael Saylor acquired, Bitcoin. We should do that too. But I think Michael Saylor, I wouldn't listen to his ideas. You know what I mean? I personally wouldn't do that, because why would I go all into Bitcoin? Take a look at my calls on Turbo. Take a look at my calls on Floki. Take a look at even XDC. Why would I even acquire Bitcoin? It just makes no sense to me, but that's just my personal opinion. Now, people may think that, okay, $3 for XDC is ridiculous because it can't reach that. But again, I disagree, because the fundamentals are actually very impressive. You take a look at the XDC network, purpose-built for global trade and finance. We all know that's massive. We take a look at its main competitors. You take a look at XRP, Ripple. You take a look at the Stellar blockchain. You take a look at XLM, right? So when people like to say this is actually a market that's on the rise. And I think that this right here has a lot of hypothetical potential. Even according to Mordor Intelligence, the global trade and finance market is predicted to be worth $5 trillion by 2028. So that's insane. Not to mention, you take a look at XDC, it has a very good fan base. You take a look at, they're very passionate. They have nowhere near the size of like XRP or XLM, of course, but it's heading up there. And again, the passion feels the same. Not to mention as well, listed in a bunch of major exchanges. This is going to matter during a fully fledged bull run. People need to hypothetically know something exists before they can believe in it, right? Because if, let's say, I want to describe a color I've never seen before, how can I do that? Like, if let's say I don't even know what XDC is, how will I know what it is? So by being listed in a bunch of major exchanges, this is very beneficial for something like XDC. And you got to take into consideration, its network is very fast and it's very fantastic. Allegedly, it can process, or should I say facilitate, over 2,000 transactions per second. So that's kind of crazy in my opinion. Also, you take a look at the XDC protocol, which does power the XDC network. That right there can be integrated with internal legacy systems, like for instance, Swift payment databases. That's fantastic. And it can even integrate data into the blockchain using the ISO 20022 electronic data interchange standard. So when it comes to the global trade and finance space, XDC, they have that covered. They're pretty much rock solid. The way you take a look at it is that it's kind of like a miniature version of like XRP or XLM. It's not that famous, but it kind of feels somewhat the same. You know what I mean? The way you take a look at XRP, it's like Subway. The way you take a look at XLM, it's like Jersey Mike's, right? But then when I take a look at something like XDC, it's like Quiznos. There's nothing wrong with Quiznos. I think it tastes very amazing, but then it just kind of feels like that trilogy. So the way you take a look at XDC is that it's very wonderful. It's very underrated. And again, logically speaking, it's just a much better pick for me than Bitcoin. And now some people like to say, oh, Bitcoin is so rare. How can you not acquire Bitcoin at all? Well, I think being rare is very subjective because let's say people like to argue this sometimes with me. They say that, okay, the maximum supply of Bitcoin is 21 million, but then they say that, oh, a bunch of Bitcoin is lost or whatever. And that could be true, especially in the early cases, because we've heard those horror stories of people acquiring a bunch of Bitcoin back then. And then because it was kind of early on, they forgot the password. They don't really care about it. And then what happened? They just kind of forgot about it. They don't have access to the password. But I highly doubt that even like 5 million Bitcoin is lost. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a bunch lost, but not like 5 million in my opinion. But let's say we assume like 5 million Bitcoin is lost for whatever reason. That's not even the maximum supply of Quant. You take a look at Quant, depending on the exchange or the website, it's around 14.6, around 14.8 million. So again, 21 minus 5, that's 16 million. You take a look at Quant, around 14.6, around 14.8. Again, even if we minus 5 million from the maximum supply of Bitcoin, that still wouldn't be the maximum supply of Quant. So being rare is very subjective. And is Bitcoin doing better as of right now or Quant? Of course, Bitcoin. So then it doesn't make sense that, oh, that means it's rare, it's amazing. It doesn't naturally translate to that, because if that was the case, that means the project with the lowest supply would do the best, but that's not true. Of course, Bitcoin being rare is beneficial, especially when I consider how fantastic Bitcoin is, but at its core, really, Bitcoin is primarily just a store of value. So it's not really that dynamic in my opinion. So it's not really that dynamic in terms of the use case. Now, of course, the Bitcoin ETF is going to matter a lot. The number of institutional investors in terms of gaining that attraction and hype when it comes to the crypto space overall. But then again, Bitcoin at its core doesn't have a good use case. Not to mention, yeah, sure, there are these layer 2s out there, these quote unquote Bitcoin layer 2s that could potentially give Bitcoin new use cases. Like for instance, you take a look at Stacks. Stacks is a good project. I'm bullish on that. But Bitcoin at its core, I don't think it's that dynamic in my opinion. So instead of believing in Bitcoin, I'd much rather believe in something like Stacks, something like XDC, something like XRP, something like ICP, Casper, Jasby, things that could hypothetically do well as a result of Bitcoin doing well. But then in terms of percentage increase, it could do a lot better. So that's a no-brainer for me. And again, of course, there are many bullish factors for this bull run. There's over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research, which is basically double the amount that we saw back in the peak of the 2021 bull run. So I think this bull run could be so special. Also, the amount of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption. I mean, it's just all amazing. So again, I think Bitcoin could do okay. I don't think it's going to do the best. And neither is XDC, but I think it could do better than Bitcoin. And that is the winner here for me, because I think 2025 could be a special year. And I think XDC again is the winner here for me, because reaching the price of $3 during this bull run wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Malini the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.